Hello, and welcome to the Eleemosynary Moment. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Brad Hathcock. Welcome back.
Welcome back. I was just relegating you with stories of a dog not wanting to go to the bathroom outside anymore. Spends all day outside. She's totally fucking fine. And then she comes in here to go to the bathroom.
That's so fucked up. See, I've been having an issue with my dog going to the bathroom in the house. He's just like pissing on the floor, like whenever he wants. And it's like we changed his food to that the farmer's dog, so it's all like natural, real food. And I guess now because like the way kibble is, it like blows up in their stomach, so it makes them full. And he doesn't have that now, so he has real food. So I think he's drinking water because he still thinks he's hungry, and then he's just like pissing on the floor. So I have to take him out like 15 times a day. There's literally nothing wrong with him. I took him to the vet and everything. His body's fine. It's just he's like purposely pissing on the floor.
Oh, it sucks because like she's so old, right? Like he's young and doing that, so it could be fixed. With her,
He's 13. He's 13.
Oh, he's an older man, but
So he's old.
I leave her outside. Like I put her outside at like 7 in the morning, and I won't let her back in until like noon. And it's around noon that she comes in, and then she's like, "Okay, sweet, time to do it."
Time to piss and shit on the floor.
I feel bad for her at first, but now I'm just like really just like I've had enough.
Did that start more after your other dog died?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's part of it.
That was weird because the first couple weeks it was like she didn't even realize he was gone. It was like living with a dementia patient. So I have no idea how that reacted. I mean, the other day, 2 weeks ago, I thought she was going to die. She laid on her bed for like 10 hours straight without like opening her eyes. I was like, oh, here we go. She's fine now.
What sounds to me like you're describing yourself as Jill Biden, and you're just like living with Joe, and you wake up every morning, put a mirror under his nose to see if he's still breathing.
I'll bring Kamala in. I will. I'll get another cat. I'll name her Kamala.
Oh God.
Do we? I don't know. The DNC starts today. I didn't even realize it.
It does, yeah. Funny thing about that is there's two things that are really going on there that I find really funny. One, the Democrats are trolling Trump by projecting Project 2025 onto like Trump Tower in Chicago,
It's
like
so
just to
lame.
fuck with them because there's nothing he can do about it. It is lame. Like all of it's lame. What they're really doing is just clowning him, which is also funny.
Yeah.
Because he's always trying to like troll people and shit. So it is kind of funny. Democrats have kind of found their sense of humor about things, but they have to. Um, they've kind of labeled this the vibes election, which is terrible for everyone,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Clearly she really has not put forward too much in the way of policy. She just recently released a bunch of policies, which we can get into a little bit.
No, do it right now because they pissed me off.
So we're just going through some stuff here. First, she's doing she interviewed Tim Walz by herself, and they didn't discuss policy. So it was like she was interviewing him on camera for no purpose. Literally no purpose.
Well, she's probably getting to know him for the first time too. That's how That's how this worked out, apparently.
But they're just getting up there and stumping for each other, and Tim Walz is doing he's doing public engagement and stuff, and so is she. But it's all teleprompter based bullshit. I think there was one time when she got caught on a question about like paying for stuff, and she just fumbled around it. She doesn't know anything really, and we'll kind of get to that in her policies. But the other thing that the Democrats are doing right now down there are they're building walls, and clearly walls don't work, because they're basically preparing for the likelihood of, I think they said upwards of 100,000 pro-Hamas protesters to be at the DNC.
Like they were going to be there no matter what, right?
Yeah, I think there was already some fucking moron there who like stormed the stage, and he was wearing a mask
Mm,
and
very
was like,
brave.
saying like pro Hamas shit. And, well, of course, these fucking people like Nina Turner and shit come out, and they're like, we should always be doing this, like, not just now, but like we should always be storming the stages and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not who you really are. Like, if somebody did that to you, you would fucking run and cower in another room because you're afraid that they're a fucking terrorist or a Republican, or which I guess she probably considers them both the same. So it doesn't really matter. But they're there building walls because of these protesters. It looks like almost a military march there from the videos I've seen of the police like lining the streets and like walking down the streets and stuff. Like, I texted you and our super fan Adam this morning that it literally looks like North Korea, like you know how they do those like marches of military might looking kind of things. It kind of looks like that. So the party that wanted to defund the police increased like their police presence there. They built walls, which they were against. Like, it's really just going to be a shit show. Joe Biden, I think the DNC doesn't officially start until like 7 p.m. tonight, I believe. And Joe Biden, I believe, is supposed to also speak tonight, but they kept him out of a primetime spot because they know he's gonna fuck it up. So it's interesting to see, because I'm seeing these articles about how like angry he still is about basically getting ousted, and we know that it was a soft coup by the Democrats to oust him because he wasn't going to leave, and Nancy Pelosi is doing the Nancy Pelosi thing, as unfortunately good as she is at basically being the deep state, saying, well, I never made a phone call to anybody
Yeah.
about any of this. Like, she's basically using the best plausible deniability tactics that she can. But ultimately, I feel like what they did is, we're going to invoke the 25th Amendment and really ruin your legacy unless you step down. And, so now it seems like Biden's probably angry and at Obama and at Nancy Pelosi, I think at Chuck Schumer, and supposedly his speech could get, pretty angry tonight, which I would hope for. I would love to go up there and see him just completely like shit on everybody in the DNC. And they've been writing and rewriting his speech, which means to me he's not writing any of it, and they're probably going to keep it pretty close to the vest. But we all know he also can't really read that well, so maybe he'll fly off the cuff and say something fucked up and funny. That's what I'm hoping for, at least.
Well, first of all, the walls that are going up, they should call them Tim Walz. Second, um, it's going to be the last time he pretty much talks to the public, right? So,
I mean, is he even really president anymore? I don't think so.
We really don't know who's making decisions, but as far as like his quote unquote legacy goes, you spent your entire life in public service, with an asterisk that like he did it all for himself, and he was never very good at it anyway. And then everybody around him that wanted him out of office was like Obama always talks shit about him, and Pelosi probably thinks he's a fucking idiot, right? So like now he's gonna salvage his legacy before he gives his son the pardon that he so desperately wants. And
Obama didn't even want him as vice president when he had him. He had to
needed
pick him
him
because he was a white moderate Democrat, basically, and he just needed that to like plug his campaign. So it's and there's always been a contentious relationship between the two of them.
Well, there's a contentious relationship between Biden and the American people. I mean, really, nobody has ever liked the guy. If you listen to like podcasts with people who were around in those like the late 70s, 80s, 90s, McLaughlin Group, all these old videos, like nobody ever took the guy seriously. He was just considered a blowhard.
Well, he's been a consistent liar. I mean, we talked about it. He had to
never
drop
told the
out
truth.
of multiple presidential races because he can't fucking tell the truth. I mean, about anything. He can't tell the truth about how his son Bo died. He can't tell the truth to the American people about what he believes. Like, I mean, he's never been able to tell the truth. He said he came in first in or like the top 1% or whatever of his legal degree, and that was not true. He was in like the bottom percentages of his class for his law degree and shit. Like, it's so stupid.
I mean, Bo
He's
Biden died
also so
tonight.
stupid.
Like, Bo Biden died in
Probably.
6 hours in the streets of Chicago. So, yeah, okay, so he's going to give the speech, and then it'll be like, I don't know. Like, he spent the entire, like, past 2 years talking about how, like, democracy is, like, fucked or whatever, and that was, like, his entire platform. So, like, is he just going to get up there and, like, angrily rant about democracy, and then, like, that'll be the last chapter in the book, and he dies in, like, a year? Like, I guess. And they're doing the joy thing, right? Like, that they took a whole different angle to it, which is completely manufactured by the media, because I didn't look at those businesses boarding up their windows and these protesters, and I didn't say, like, oh, that's joy. Meanwhile, she's out there doing things like price controls. Even if she even knows what that means, and maybe she doesn't, I doubt maybe she does. The idea of doing something as reckless as saying, like, we're going to fix the economy by doing price controls on an industry that has like 1.18% margins, which is the grocery stores. Meanwhile, she's going to a gas station with her running mate, and he's giving her Doritos because that's her thing. And there's not a press person there who's willing to ask her how much those Doritos actually cost. It's just all of it. It's just the media not asking her about her shit policies. She's gonna have the FTC regulate the price of, let's say, Doritos in Ohio at a gas station, and then in California down the street from me, right? Like, the whole it's like she took all these bad ideas that she ran on in the past, completely replaced them with a set of new, maybe even worse ideas, and then we're just like, okay.
So I think it's important to note that they've tried price fixing in the Soviet Union, which collapsed. They tried it in Cuba, which collapsed. They tried it in Venezuela, which collapsed. So I think we notice a theme here. They're all communists. So Kamala Harris, the communist, in natural fashion, being from California, that's not shocking.
Communism with a K. Yeah, it's her communism.
Exactly. But they've tried price fixing before, and it does not work. It just does not work. And I believe what you said is they give the FTC the power, and they do that on a state by state basis, so that they can price control, in the states on an individual basis, because obviously the cost of living is different in different areas.
Yeah, why would
like
it? You could do it across the board. It would actually be even worse in the Soviet Union, because at least there it was like, this is how much we're going to make, and this is how much it's going to cost. Here it's like, well, I don't know how much to make now, and how are we going to do this? And there's taxes in different places that cost.
Right.
And I don't know who's advising her, and I really don't give a shit, because I'm more pissed at the press because they just give her a fucking pass on it. They're just like, how are you going to do this? Who gives you the power to do this?
So that's what I was like going to touch on too, with one of the other policies that she brought up. She wanted to increase the child tax credit to $6,000 and basically reinstate the child tax credit. She took that from Trump, saying he wanted to raise it to like $5,000 and everything.
I heard was a really bad idea when he brought it up. And then she's like, I'll do 6, and they're like, sounds better.
And CBS was like, they shit on Trump for it, saying that like it could cost the government too much money and cause like more inflation and stuff. But then when Kamala said it, they came out and said that, oh, this is such a great idea to help people. Like, they're very, very clearly and unshockingly trying to just paint her in a positive light and him in a negative light. Like, we are the most propagandized nation in the world, guaranteed, because we just like engage with it. Like, at least other countries know, yeah, everything they feed us is propaganda, but we blindly believe this kind of shit and just keep moving on and moving on. And like, anyone who thinks that people from these two major parties are here to like help them is sorely fucking mistaken, because they don't care about anybody.
I want to shit on Tim Walz a lot here in a minute, but I do want to also bring up the 25% down payment thing, or like the scheme that she has.
25 grand. Yeah.
Oh, it's 25 grand. Okay.
Yep. 25
25%
grand.
would be quite a big number. Well, it's not much different, I guess. So, you have limited supply for something in the United States, and then you're going to give people the ability to do 25 grand to buy a house, get a mortgage. So what you're going to have is four people, and they're all going to bid on the same thing from the same limited inventory, and the seller's going to raise it $25,000 for the sale price, and only one of those people is going to be able to get that house. Problem not solved. It's so fucking
Nope.
stupid. And I can't believe nobody's paying attention to any of this shit. Like you said, it's probably the media is just never going to cover it. So, like, I don't know. They throw out whatever wacky idea. Who gives? She doesn't have the right to do that. And I also read somewhere, by the way, I don't know who it was, but it was one of these people who are always like, democracy is in peril with Donald Trump, and they wrote on their X account that it'll be okay with her shitty policies because the Democrats probably won't have the Senate.
Okay, then why fucking elect her then? You
What?
just so that there's not Donald Trump. That goes both ways.
Yeah.
That absolutely goes both ways.
And they're saying like,
That
oh,
is
it's going to be a check. It's like, oh, well, a Democratic-led House would be a check on Donald Trump.
right. And they, that's why they were basically trying to push push Biden out, because he was dragging down the rest of the ticket. And now that Kamala's in there, the rest of the ticket is kind of like going up as well. So what if we end up with a fucking supermajority in Congress and she gets the presidency? Then you're just gonna carte blanche start passing these like fucking communist laws. Like to the point of what you said, it's going to be the same thing with groceries. You start price fixing, what you end up doing is creating a shortage. And it goes back to what, like the 70s and stuff. I think they tried price fixing
Jimmy
here
Carter
in the
did
US,
with
and
gas.
it went to it
It
drove
didn't
people
work.
to lines for gas.
Brad,
And
I avoid the hyperbole of using the word communism when I'm describing somebody on the left, because they have the tendencies, or they might be socialists or whatever. But price fixing is literally like directly out of communism. It's the oldest idea in communism. You could call her a communist now if that's the idea that she wants to endorse. Then I have no.
100%. I think it has to be said ultimately that she's a communist now. I mean, she's trying to do a lot of different things. That, like she said, she wants to completely eliminate private health insurance. Well,
Like,
you spent all
wow.
this time fighting for the Affordable Care Act, which is basically just a subsidy to the insurance companies. And generally, subsidies, I believe, increase pricing. So we're starting to see people complain that they can't afford their health care, even from the ACA, because it reduced competition. You can't sell across state lines, all this other shit. And then, they're complaining. Everybody's complaining. Well, these healthcare companies are raking in billions of dollars. Well, yeah, you're giving them billions of dollars of fucking subsidies.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen?
Their answer to you would be, we got to make it better. It sucks, so we have to give it more money, or we have to change the policy, or it's like, it's the same answer with all this shit. It's like, what was you wanted, the other thing I saw she did, I wanted to bring it up, was this astonishing statement where she said that we would take patents from companies. She's like, why can't,
Well,
like,
because of patent law, maybe, first
I
of all,
mean,
but I guess that doesn't apply to the government.
I guess you don't. I guess we're not going to ask her about that one either. Like, oh, we're the government, so we're just going to take your patent, because they did it with like the COVID vaccine or whatever. That means they could just like, oh, Germany, I don't, we want your patent, so we're just going to take it. And it's like, wow,
If
democracy's on
anything,
the ballot.
if anything, if you want prices to come down, you have to remove patents for US companies so that other companies can produce the same drugs. Like, if you want to bring down the cost of drugs, because you basically just create the ability for a company to hold on to a drug for 10, 20 years, and then they're the only ones that profit from it. And then as you see, like, once those patents start to actually expire, you get more like generics that form and come out onto the market, and they're exceptionally cheaper.
Yeah, but
You're like,
I'll defend that, right? Because you're the company that's putting in the resources to develop the drug, and you want to make a profit on the back end, so you get that after you've discovered the drug. So I get it, I really do. And also,
Sure,
there's
but then
every
you
country in
should
the
be able
world
to
benefits.
license. They should license out their patents to these other companies.
That's
But the
fair.
problem is they won't.
Well,
They
that's a fair
won't
point,
because
but
it right. It just creates a monopoly on the market
why should they license
for
them?
any drug.
Let me just pose you the question because you brought it up. Why should a company license anything out? I mean, they could do it for fun,
Well, you recoup your research and development
but you
at
can't
that
force
point.
them to do
Well,
that.
your big issue. I'm not saying you should force them,
Oh,
but you sit here and not you specifically, but people want to sit here and complain about pharmaceutical companies and how much money they make, especially on the left. They complained about pharmaceutical companies until COVID came along, and then they were the saviors and all this other stuff. Well, research and development is why pharmaceuticals are so expensive. If they license out their patents to other pharmaceutical companies, then they recoup those costs faster, meaning that they could potentially make more money because they're not recouping like the cost over 20 years. You might recoup it over 5 years or something like that.
it's an interesting
Sure,
idea.
other people are going to flood the market with similar drugs, but then you have to compete and get your prices down.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
also, the federal government they're so regulatory heavy. The FDA is so regulatory heavy that the companies that research pharmaceuticals, R&D, and all that, they have to burden the cost of, like, I don't know, are they at fault for this? Did the person die from that? It's like it's also burdensome that I don't know. You
it's
could
very burdensome.
deregulate it. Here's a brilliant idea.
Well, let's face it, our government isn't really in the business of deregulating much of anything.
All right, so I want to talk about the other communist, which is Tim Walz, who actually does seem like a legit communist. Something leaked recently. I think it was this week, maybe over the weekend. Apparently he was a teacher in China in like 1989. He got there like maybe a month after Tiananmen Square, where like thousands of people were killed protesting for democracy. And he said something to the effect of, like, communism is good in China because everybody shares everything. Like, almost.
Except they don't.
Of course not.
Everything goes to the government, and the government gives you what you need. Like,
He said
literally,
socialism is neighborliness or something.
he said one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. That's what he said. But the Chinese government, okay, will actually go in and do like genetic testing on your child and basically pick you that you're going to be an Olympian and put you in a sport that they believe that you'll excel at and force you to basically become an Olympian.
Yeah.
I believe that's true.
Well,
So
Tim Walz is down with that.
I'm sure he is.
He's never had a bad word to say about China.
The thing is that they're giving Tim Walz the media treatment and the democratic media treatment, and they're painting him in a good light. And make no mistake, he is a way better public speaker than I think anybody gave him credit for.
Yeah.
And he's way better at public speaking than Kamala Harris, or, I guess not so much a better public speaker than Donald Trump, except he just tends to like rant and ramble on and like lose his train of thought. But Tim Walz has been, I guess, capable of being a good public speaker. So they're just running with that and trying to completely eliminate policies. I mean, even Breaking Points, who I typically like, are painting Tim Walz in a positive light. And I don't like that because it's not. Like, they're saying he's very, very pro worker and making, very populist policies and like all this other stuff. And like, I'm pro worker too. Like, I'm actually pro union, but I'm also anti union. Like, I believe you have the right to unionize if you want to. And like, for that reason, I'm pro worker, but I'm anti union in the sense that they protect the shittiest workers that they have, and like, that's not okay. So it's like, but by all means, do what you want to do. And they want everybody to fucking unionize, like, and that's wrong. Like, if you don't want to unionize, you shouldn't have to.
Well, we're at the point now where being part of a union is like a leftist, like a dream, like LARPing, where you're like, I work at this video game company, and like we have to unionize because that's the cool thing to do. And it's like, you work at a fucking video game company, or you work at the New York Times or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I don't, I think that he's really dangerous just because of the fact that he's like, they're painting him as like super easygoing Midwestern grandpa who hunts, but like you said, Breaking Points likes him, and it's like, that's the danger of somebody who's like so charismatic, is like he sells these poisonous ideas. Meanwhile, you
Sure.
look at his record and his state, and it's like, it's like the snitch line, right? With the Stasi agents, and you're reporting your neighbor because they weren't following the COVID guidelines, and you shoot somebody with a paintball gun because they were standing outside on their porch after 5 p.m., which this is like the video of it actually happened during COVID. Like the guy is an authoritarian.
Definitely. I mean, one thing that you're not seeing is anybody talk about, the 2020 riots and basically fucking Minnesota burning like down because of him and all this other shit. But it's because the media is like, well, people don't care about that anymore.
They may be right. I don't know.
Unfortunately, I think they are right. I think people have very short memories because of the 24-hour news cycle, and virtually nobody cares. The media and the elite of this country, and both Republican and Democrat, they have people just fucking stuck for life, man.
Yeah.
Like, a friend of mine, he's the guy I wanted to get on the podcast to talk about healthcare in Canada and stuff. He said something in 2016 about Donald Trump being a threat to democracy and all this other stuff, and he was like, it's the lesser of two evils, we have to do this. And I said, the Democrat Party has you for life now. They have you for life because you think like that. You will never not vote for a Democrat because of that thinking. And it's bared out so far. He has voted for Democrat every single election since then. They have you for life if you have that kind of mentality, that we only have a two-party system and that like you have to pick from the lesser of two evils and everything else. And while I even have my problems with the Libertarian Party, especially with this particular election, we have to do something to get third parties into the mainstream. We have to. Like, this country can't continue down the path of the lesser of two evils. That's how we got to where we are in the fucking first place, is 50, 60 years of lesser of two evils, lesser of two evils. And instead of actually looking at the system as a whole, as rot, which is what the appeal of Trump was initially, was looking at the system being rotten and trying to fix that, people are just going with it and continuing to go with it because nobody can fucking think for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you look at how Trump took over the Republican Party, right? And it's like, oh, that finally happened. Like a person took over the entire thing and then made it in their image. It'll be interesting to see if it can survive that. I suspect it might.
I think the funny thing about Trump is that everybody who supports Trump, and this is what I don't understand, because Trump supporters must not be all that smart. They followed this drain the swamp shit, right? And he didn't do that. If anything, he enhanced the swamp. He brought in people like John Bolton and other people like that who are the swamp to be in his cabinet. And now he has trouble, filling out a cabinet to begin with. But
you're talking about that guy who the Democrats have him for life. Like, it might be even worse if you're like a Trump supporter. Like, he's got you for life, but you only support him. You don't support the party.
Right.
You're not like a ride or die Democrat. You're like, I support this one guy, and like when he dies, I'm gonna go visit his like grave every year and lay flowers at the great leader. I mean, it's like a little bit.
It's cultish. It
Yeah.
is. But I feel like that for both Republicans and Democrats. Democrats don't hold up one single person as an ideologue, but they hold up the party itself as an ideologue. And that we are to help the working class and like all this other stuff. But if you go and look, like when Obama was in office and he had the supermajority, what did we have? We had the economy collapse. Okay, not inherently his fault. He
No.
inherited an economy, right? But what did he do? The biggest fucking financial giveaway to giant corporations that we've ever seen.
He had to pay back his donors. We should also note that, before Trump was the biggest threat to democracy, they said the same thing about such authoritarians as Mitt Romney and John McCain. So,
right,
two of the most, two people who were like despised by their party.
And I've been saying that for quite a while, actually. Every election is democracy is on the ballot. You have to vote for us because if you don't, democracy is going to end. Like all this other shit. Democrats have been using that playbook for a long time, and people just keep buying into it and buying into it. Like it's really sad to see, and like this is the country that we live in because of, again, just the loss, the lack of third-party candidates, and where everybody tells you that voting for third party is taking away votes from someone else, and that's ruining democracy. Like, no, that's actually democracy in play. Like getting to vote for somebody because they're on the ballot and like you chose that person.
I'm gonna be really generous to you right now and say that you're just being way too pragmatic and smart about the average voter. I think it's a lot less interesting than that. I think it's really like my friend Sally said that they're going to take away abortion if I don't vote in this election right now. Or they say like, if Kamala gets in office, she's going to make a database of gun owners. I mean, crazy shit that like is never going to happen, right? I think
she did say she wants mandatory gun buybacks.
Yeah. Which I love.
Fucking luck.
Who are you buying them back from? Who bought them in the first place?
I personally have lost all of my guns in a boating accident, so I no longer have any.
Yeah,
I was out there shooting fish in a river, and my boat capsized. They're all gone. They're all gone.
So like I think a lot of voters are just really checked out, and then they just hear like one or two things, and they hear it the week before the election, and they're like, "Well,
right?
Guess I'm a one-issue voter."
They say the average voter doesn't even start paying attention to an election until at least 90 days before.
Yeah, it's usually September 1st. Yeah, it's like Labor Day.
And what do you hear in those 90 days? I mean, nothing really. Like everybody's kind of already had all their talking points. Hopefully, luckily, we see some debates going on before 90 days out.
Those will be interesting
if they happen. Trump, I think Trump has started to pull back on wanting to do debates. He should want to debate Kamala Harris because she's not very adept at going off prompter.
I'll call it she's stupid, idiot.
Right. But the problem is he keeps going after her fucking her race. And it's so the weird. Dumbest thing. We talked about it. It's like the dumbest thing that Republicans could have done in regards to this election. Like, you had it in the bag. She's had it in the bag.
She's like all but saying like, I'm an avowed communist. I have the most radical policies. And she does have the most radical policies of anybody who's ever run for president on the left side of the ticket.
I think what serves her greatly is that she was so bad in the first 2 years as vice president that they've just hidden her away for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
And then when they need her, they're like, oh, well, we can just rehash this and just put it in a positive light.
They threw her in the microwave and heated her up, and she's young and she's attractive, and they're not.
So one of the things Republicans have been doing is sharing pictures of her in some more risque outfits that I believe are real. I don't know, but it's who cares about any of that?
The same thing happened with Anna Paulina, whatever, and
Anna Paulina Luna
and Lauren Boebert. Look at her; she's got a tattoo and a bikini, and it's like, what's your angle here. Like
who
they
cares?
look pretty good, and like Kamala's an attractive woman. That's not going to win you the election. But if you focus on her ideas, and it's like we're not convincing anybody because we're just here. You and I are just talking into a mailbox. I don't know. It's just really like frustrating as like a person who follows politics to know that we've been talking about how useless she was for the whole run of our podcast, and that
definitely.
Now we're saying like we were right,
right? But I think it comes down to that, like even picking the vice president. Basically, it's come out now that she didn't pick Josh Shapiro, not because he's Jewish, like everybody's saying, like the Republicans are saying, but apparently because he is too politically motivated, in that he wants to further his career, and she doesn't want somebody who outshines her. He's a better public speaker than she is, everything. He actually has a record of reaching across the aisle and working with Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania to pass legislation and stuff, and has a 60% approval rating here in PA, which is, I would imagine, one of the highest governor approval ratings in the country.
I'll bet you it's up there.
I bet it's probably in the top 10. And he, I guess, is too ambitious for her, so she didn't want that. Whereas Tim Walz has no further political ambitions.
I think he said so
allegedly.
When he wrote her a letter, like, he said, I'll be your VP.
Right. The thing that I think Republicans are struggling with is that Tim Walz doesn't appear to be financially captured by anyone, it seems.
Oh, he's not. That's interesting.
Yeah. He really has he doesn't own any stocks or anything like that. I'm sure that's all going to change once he gets into office, but who knows, because it won't matter anymore at that point. But I also think that nobody wanted to be the one to lose to Donald Trump, because then your career is basically over at that point. I mean, it happened to Hillary Clinton. They can't rehash her anymore because she lost to Trump.
Yeah. Well, also Tim Walz, by the way, I guess he was like mentored by somebody who was like a huge fan of Hitler. I don't know if you saw this, but there was like some imam somewhere that was like big Hitler fan, and so there's a lot of
all that shit's getting buried. They're just getting the good treatment from the media. Like everything's being whitewashed for
good.
them.
Yeah, it's really.
And so anyone that's out there, okay, if you're listening to us and you were thinking of being a Kamala voter, I highly doubt any of you are listening to this podcast, but please actually go and see like what has been said about her for a long time, because I know a lot of people are not interested in that.
You should vote for her if you want to, but you should do it with
100%. And one of the things I've been seeing since I'm now on Communist Talk, believe it or not, is a lot of black voters out there who are anti-Kamala.
Yeah, there's a little of that. I think
there's a lot of them.
Well, I think the numbers got better for her than they were for Biden, but still, I think I would be alarmed if, as a Democratic Party, I just assumed that every minority race, as you see it, would vote for you for the rest of eternity. And
well, that's what they bank on.
Yeah, and
I mean,
might not be
Joe
working.
Biden said if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. Remember?
Yeah.
I mean,
who could forget?
Again, the Democrats believe that they have that demographic locked up. They're like ideologically captured, that we are going to help you. And so I have another friend of mine, a black female, who I said, historically speaking, Democrat policies hurt minorities. That's just a fact. Look at them.
Yeah.
And she says, yeah, I know that that's true, but voting for Republicans is worse for me. How? When Trump was in office, you had the lowest minority unemployment rate ever. I think minority wages were higher. He saved, apparently, historically black universities by giving them funding. Things I didn't know, which I had heard from some minorities at the RNC, were saying Like, he came through with basically a jobs program tied to like government assistance, basically. Like, oh well, here you can have government assistance, but here's like all these jobs that you can apply for and try to get and all this other stuff. So he basically created this jobs program. And there was a lady specifically, this was on Barry Weiss's Honestly podcast.
Yeah.
And they were all like, we know what Democrats are doing, and their policies have ruined Chicago. And ironically, the DNC is there. They're like, Democrat policies are ruining Chicago, and like, we want something different.
Well, in that same podcast, you will note that none of them are Trump supporters or Republicans.
Nope. They even said, I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
I don't care that they use racist rhetoric and all of that shit. I don't care about that. I care that what they've shown is that their policies are to help minorities.
It's one of the most honest interviews you'll get on this election season, because
it was directly off the street.
Yeah,
and the guy that was interviewing with them was pushing them towards like Democrats and saying like, hey, like, Republicans are racist. Why do you think this?
Well, that interviewer, by the way, I'm a huge fan of his. He is on one of my favorite podcasts, my favorite podcast personally. I actually paid to subscribe to it, called The Fifth Column. But yeah, he talks about that interview quite a few times, because he had a number of conversations that weren't on that interview, where he talked to people in taxi cabs or whatever. It's like, he had interesting anecdotes about minority taxi cab drivers that were voting for Trump, stuff like that. And I think it's interesting.
Well, taxi cab drivers, I imagine, are more for Trump.
Yeah,
he wants to crack down on like the tech companies, and that would include Uber and Lyft. They are, let's not make a mistake here, they are tech companies that use drivers with their own vehicles as workers, and they're gig workers. And Democrats, probably want to keep that going. At those tech companies fund the Democrats and stuff like that. And it's really hard to be a taxi driver now because of Uber and Lyft.
Well, this might have been an Uber driver, by the way. I don't know.
It could have been. Yeah.
I doubt it matters. I doubt it's a distinction without a difference in some cases. But I saw in this video, I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the Don Lemon on the street thing?
Yeah.
So like he tried a form of this, right? And it kind of backfired on him, because he did the same exact thing. He was talking to like people on the street, and they were just like, they were bluntly honest with him about how they felt, and it was interesting.
People hate Don Lemon, dude.
What's not to hate.
Honestly, I think it's gotten worse for him. Like, obviously since getting fired, but
he's such a douchebag.
I think people really turned on him. He's an elitist prick for sure.
Yeah. And
I think they get that. And he follows like the Democrat line, and like you just have to, you have to do that. I was just watching a video before we did this. A girl was like saying, hey, what is like some Democrat policies? And he's like, well, I'm a member of the media. You should talk to a voter. And they were like, you're not a voter? And he's like, well, I'm a member of the media, so I don't want to give my opinion.
There's a first.
I mean, you've been doing that for CNN for years.
Did you see that clip of Caitlin Collins on Stephen Colbert where he said like, oh, CNN's like a really serious news organization, and the audience laughs, and they're like, they didn't intend for them to laugh, and it was kind of awkward.
No, I didn't. That's great.
Yeah, she's like, was that supposed to be a laugh line? He's like, well, I guess it is now, because he just said like, yeah, you're a very serious news outfit, you collect data.
Dude, I think there was 1 week where the viewership for CNN in the 18 to 36 whatever demographic, like there's one that demographic range, it's like the largest range, was down like 89 down to like 89,000 people watching for an entire week in that age bracket.
Who's watching?
I don't know, but I think they're set to lay off like more people because everything's just bad there. I mean, it's real bad.
Well, I turned on my Max, I think the app. You use that app. If you go on there, you'll notice that there's a CNN like live stream beta tab on there now.
Yeah, I think that's because they're owned by Warner Brothers or whatever whatever the fucking company is that owns CNN, because
It's,
it's all owned now, right? Like, yeah, it's got to be owned by Disney, I guess, because
I don't know. You know what's crazy is the consolidation. Like everything got like consolidated like 20 years ago or maybe 15, and then everything got kind of split off, and now it's all back to just like
right. And so here is a great failure of the government, right? Their job is to break up monopolies. How is it that 3 to 6 companies owning every piece of media is not some form of monopoly? Just because there's 6 of them?
I guess because
Like,
it's IP. I mean, that's the only.
they
That's me playing devil's advocate. I don't know how
I
you could
mean, we
regulate
have
that.
we have really bad antitrust laws in this country for sure. Like that, if you are a pro-government person, you should be advocating for stronger antitrust laws to break up some of these big companies. But it doesn't happen. You see consolidation everywhere. You see it in the tech industry. You see it everywhere. Like, so the American dream isn't anymore to like own your business, right? It's to make your business grow enough to be bought by somebody else, because that's where you'll make $1 billion and then spend the rest of your life happy and not having to work.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, unless you're like a wildly ambitious person like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, and you're like, well, time to take this and turn.
Right. So did you see that people are suing Elon Musk and Donald Trump? The unions are suing them over a law where you can't publicly threaten workers and unions. And so during that Spaces interview or whatever with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they were talking about firing employees and stuff like that and like laughing about it. So now unions are trying to sue them in federal court over what they said because they're violating some law by talking like that.
That seems to conflict with the First Amendment a little bit.
I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to look more into it for sure, but I've heard about that. Donald Trump, or the RNC, I would say, famously had a union rep actually speak at the RNC, and word is that the Democrats were really angry that he spoke at the RNC. But then after this whole Spaces situation, apparently he's backtracked on that and is basically telling the union, like, what do you want me to do? Because union workers are typically pro-Trump, believe it or not. Union workers have like a cult following for Donald Trump, even though Democrats are typically more pro-union. It's a real kind of like weird, because most union workers are like blue collar people who support Trump most of the time. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do? I supported the guy who says that he wants to fire all of you. So I have to flip my support and support Democrats because Donald Trump is sitting here saying he wants you all fired.
After this week, I think we'll have a better idea of how this is all going to shake out, because the Democrats are going to have like 4 days completely unfiltered to go completely nuts, and they're going to be insane. And the RNC was not. I mean, it was pretty, like, yeah, I know they had Hulk Hogan, but like, he is actually a great. He was saying like, I'm just a guy who puts on a show. My real name's Terry, and I don't like violence and stuff. It'd be really interesting to see how they get up there and kind of like show how elite they are, because it's like, oh, we got Mindy Kaling is gonna host this night, and Beyonce is gonna have a performance, or whoever they get, and and it's like, it's gonna show how elite they are and like how kind of like out of touch they are. It might give the Republicans an opportunity.
You know what kind of energy the Democrats are putting out there right now? What was that guy's name where he was, I think, leading in the polls, and then he went, "Blah!"
Howard Dean.
And like, yeah, Howard Dean, and fucking
It ended his
Dave
political
Chappelle
career.
did like a whole bit about "Blah!" and like all that shit, and it ended his political career, even though he was like leading, I think, in some polls, and one stupid mistake, and it blew his career. And Democrats are giving off that vibe right now, that whole vibe.
You probably don't know anything about her, and she has been kind of like out of the public eye even during her vice presidency. This is the first time they're going to hear from her, and she's
So Let's think back now to the two previous elections to this one, and this one in context. How do you pick what is the worst election that we've had? Because you had Trump versus Hillary, you had Trump versus Joe Biden, and now you have Trump versus Kamala Harris. Like, how do you pick which is the worst?
Well, the first one was funny. So
Yeah, at least there was that. At least there was that.
Ye-
Yeah, but you know what? That was one of the things that like really propelled Trump forward was the whole lock her up thing. And then he gets into office and he's like, "Oh no, that would be really bad for everybody in the future if I were to do something like that, locking up a politician like that."
Yeah.
And so he completely backed away from it, and people still supported him and still to this day talk about like the whole lock her up thing. So
Well, I think this cycle is actually the most interesting of the three because it's kind of unprecedented. I mean, we do have a president of the United States who is like not talked about at all. Like almost like you wouldn't even know he's running the country. And the way she talks about it is the same way, where she's like, or Tim Walz was like, "We're gonna turn the page. We're looking forward," and it's like, turn the page on your president, the guy you wanted,
right.
It's very
You're moving
strange.
forward from your own party.
Yeah, or like her policies where she's like, we right now, meat is like 50% more than it was in 2020, and it's like, well, thanks for admitting it, I guess. Like, it's your fault.
But see, they're hinging that on completely blaming Trump for COVID and everything.
I would say he
was sure some, but it was actively the U.S. government contributing in cahoots with the Chinese government to create COVID in a lab.
I would love to blame him for that. I know he didn't put. I would like to blame him for a lot of the things, but he was completely uninterested in any of that Peter Danzig shit that is.
And we discussed it here on the podcast before anyone else
a long time ago, and we did a whole episode.
It's like completely out of mind for us. We did a whole episode on it.
Yeah,
whole episode.
They just came. There just 2 more emails came out yesterday about that asshole, and it's like, all right. There's literally, I think one of them said like, well, we don't want more information to come out because, Anthony Fauci or whatever they called him, he's doing a media tour. We don't want him to look bad. It's like, all right, well, I guess we're never gonna get.
We're never gonna get to the bottom of this fucking assassination attempt. We've memory holed that shit, and it's been like a month.
You know who has better? There was a assassination plot or some sort of terror event planned at a Taylor Swift concert, and god damn it, her security personnel stepped up and stopped it immediately. And our Secret Service can't do shit, and they continue not to do shit.
They caught 3 people.
Yeah.
But you know what? People were like, "Oh, poor Taylor Swift. She had to cancel her concert because somebody was going to terrorist attack her concerts." Not poor Taylor Swift. She's making a fuckload of money. Shut up.
Innocent people, just like the
Nothing
ones
to do with her.
Just like the ones that were shot at that rally.
What do terrorists do? They target soft targets with lots of people. What the fuck do you think a concert is? Especially one of her caliber, where there's gonna be 80,000 people there. It's
all
a fucking
women.
Terrorist wet dream. Like, why? Yeah, it's not poor Taylor Swift. It's a fucking good target.
Well,
for terrorists.
Yeah, I wish people would,
especially in Europe.
I wish people would take it a little more seriously. The whole like, oh, those were just Republicans that were shot at that rally, so like they were not real people. Fuck them. It's like that's a really bad attitude. And we've gotten to the point now where it wouldn't surprise me if something happened this week with all these like 100,000 people protesting in Chicago, and for something to happen, and you will not hear me going on here saying like, because they were pro-Hamas, they deserved it.
You have in private. No, I'm kidding. You've wanted campuses to like shut down these protests and things of that nature, which I vehemently disagree with, because you have the right to protest.
But Brad, I wanted them shut down because they were making Jews wear badges and going in different entrances. It was like, it wasn't just like at the protest that I had a problem with. It was like the weird, right. Hey, we got a Jew.
It has gotten weirdly anti-Semitic, But at the same time, you know, when you have Israel calling everything anti-Semitic, like just because you can't speak out against them, like the second you take a stance that is not beneficial to Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Which
Well,
you have to
anytime you say
you have
something
to
nice
kind of
about a
like
Jew, you're
siphon
like,
yourself off for that.
oh, you're a Zionist. You global
Right.
Zionist.
And that's, you know, that's one of the things I will say even about Breaking Points is like they are, at least Crystal Ball is like pretty pro Hamas, and as you know, I am not pro Hamas. I'm pro not funding any of this shit. I don't care who does it or what they're doing. I just don't want to be paying for it because I like taxpayer dollars back in their pocket.
Yeah, well,
which we'll never get.
Yeah,
we're only going to see an increase from here.
Well, next administration.
Just remember that the socialists in France won, and they want to tax anybody making over $400,000 a year at 90%.
Is that true?
So,
jeez.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. They want to implement a 90% tax over anybody making over 400,000 euros a year.
Well, we should also note that pro-democracy Kamala Harris, also voted for those 89,000 IRS agents that are cracking down.
I guess that was the other thing, right? She doesn't want to tax tips anymore, but she was one of the first people to sign on to actually tax tip workers, saying that they didn't report enough tips.
Yeah, who the
so
fuck
they wanted to go
them?
after those people, right?
Like, I love that. I love that she took Trump's idea, just like shamelessly took it, and the media's like,
she keeps doing it. Like she just keeps taking his ideas.
Well, and before it shows the bias. I mean, it's night and day. It's like obvious, but like the media was like, Trump wants these workers to keep their tips, but that's just that's to help the corporations. I don't know how, but that was their friend.
Well, in true communist nature, she's just like, well, these are everybody's ideas. So
yeah,
I'm gonna take them.
There's an element of that too. Like you watch the media, and they're like, well, the comrade. I mean, the party chose their candidate behind closed doors, and they shouldn't get a primary vote. And the candidate, she had great ideas, great leader had.
I think that's the big thing that people need to see here, and again, it goes completely like untalked about, is the fact that she was just picked. There was no process. And Obama was like not even giving her his nod, because he said, I hope that there's a political process to pick a candidate, and that never happened, as we saw. And he then just got behind her, because Democrats are gonna obviously stand behind Democrats. Like that should be one of the scariest things in this country right now, is the fact that basically the oligarchs picked a candidate, and
the voters
they seized all of their funding until basically she was anointed as the candidate.
When you say it out loud, it sounds fucking nuts.
Right. If that is not oligarchs picking a candidate, what the fuck is? Like, it's everyone in this country needs to realize that our political parties are captured financially. They are 100%. And all these people who are like saying Elon Musk could end world hunger with all of his money and all this other shit really need to look at the fucking funding of candidates. Because if you took all of the money that these fucking idiots put towards political candidates and actually spent it on things that matter, it might do some good, but it doesn't. It gives them power over these candidates. It's lobbying at its worst.
Yeah.
If anything, if the number one best thing this country could do for itself is ban lobbying.
Yeah. You have like $500 million on Kamala's campaign, and you have Trump with like $350 million, and it's like, that's not small donations. That's not coming from.
No, but they're trying to say that it is. But the thing is that these PACs and shit can basically
hide it.
hide it by saying that they are small donations. I've seen videos of them going, "Hey, did you give to the Kamala Harris campaign?" And they're like, "No, I can't even afford that. It's like $100." And they're like, "I
Yeah.
can't afford that." But they're sitting here trying to say that it's all small donations. That's 100% not true.
It's
100% not
impossible.
true. It's money laundering in a fashion.
Yeah.
But nobody likes to talk about this shit. Nobody cares about this shit, right? It's got to be Kamala or it's got to be Donald Trump. It's got to be one of them.
It's impossible, right? Like I could go to my neighbor next door and go like, hey, you have all these Trump flags and shit. Like, do you know what he's doing with your money that you gave to him? He's like paying his legal fees off. Like, do you think are you?
Well, so there was that PAC that was like collecting money, and essentially it got filtered into multiple places. First, it went to Donald Trump for his legal fees, and anything left went to the actual PAC to spend on the campaign. So it was Donald Trump first, campaign second.
Yeah,
and that's a fact.
And yeah, you can. I just they would. I guess he would probably tell me like, that's good. They came after him. He's got my money and my support. Maybe that's what they would say. Or they'd say,
when really
abortion's on the
people
ballot.
people should be realizing that we're spending $40 to $80 billion a week sending that shit to Afghanistan, and it goes 8 places before it goes to the actual people of Afghanistan, 5 of which are all on terrorist watch lists. So, and they are heads of the Taliban. But, sure, let's keep funding Afghanistan.
Or gender studies in the Dominican Republic, or whatever the money goes to, right? Like,
sure,
on and on. And
one
on.
of the things I like about Rand Paul is he always does that like airing of the grievances that he has, and he's always talking about government spending. Like they spent like $3 million. Sure, like you would say, it's a drop in the bucket, right? But here's why drops in the bucket end up filling the fucking bucket. It was like $3 million to see how cocaine affects hummingbirds.
When you say like
Why
it's
do
a
you
drop in the
fucking care?
bucket, I'm not defending that. I would.
But you defend other shit because you're like, it's just a drop in the bucket.
Well, I defend funding like Ukraine. I don't defend cocaine for the birds. I mean, those are different.
I mean, definitely they are.
Hunter Biden would eat one of those.
He probably gets to keep them.
I bet you he eats them and gets
they
high.
hide his cocaine in their little buttholes.
Yeah,
and he snorts it out through their beak.
They're releasing a lot of Hunter Biden documents now that his dad's gonna rot in office.
He's getting pardoned. I'd give it a couple of weeks.
Sure, I guarantee you that. What are they do?
Oh no, 0.
You don't think so?
Like, they don't care. No, they don't care.
I mean, they've been coming out.
If Donald Trump wins, they'll find out it was Hunter Biden's, but it won't matter because he'll have already been pardoned by Joe Biden. Man, we're not going to see after tonight. We're not going to see Joe Biden for like a couple of months.
I would say
and
ever
again. He's going to come out of nowhere, and he's going to be like, "Here's my list of pardons. Hunter Biden's going to be at the top, and then he's going to fade away into existence."
Yeah, he's going to be a foot and a half taller.
Or he'll finally pull his mask down and reveal that it's been Gavin Newsom for the last few months.
They're just taller shoes, Brad. He's got...
Yeah, sure.
He's got platforms he's got to walk on because it falls. Most healthy president we've ever had with the greatest ideas ever until about 35 days ago. And she was considered the worst vice president.
Sure, she had a worse approval rating than Donald Trump.
Yeah, she may continue to, but she may find herself in that position.
Right, but then what? So say she wins the election, her and Tim Walz win the election, and she's so fucking bad that they devise a plan to get rid of her, even Democrats. Then you have fucking super commie as the president.
I think that the Republicans are not in a good position. It'll 2028 will be Kamala versus Trump. He'll be back again for a 4th time.
Probably.
He's never going to leave.
This country's fucked. And see, you were making fun of me earlier because you were like, you don't love America. You think this country's going to collapse. How the fuck can you not? That is not the experience I've ever had with you. You are not the optimist.
Well, I am on America's future. I think we'll be fine. I am not an optimist.
We're going to find out.
So, a couple things, not politically related. We watched some movies. I've got a show and tell here for our new bit.
What do you want? By all means.
Okay, so today I pulled this off the shelf randomly. This is for the listener, a Pokeball. And when you push the button, the Pokeball opens. And inside is a gold Pokemon card.
Whoa.
Real
I
gold.
remember those.
Yeah.
I remember when they came out.
These were sold at Burger King. And I've got one open, and I got another one on the shelf that's in its box. And that's
Good
my
for
show
you.
and tell for today. It's heavy.
Nice.
That's real gold. It's heavy.
I bet. No, I'm going to hold off until I get all of my grouping here.
I will say that I'm planning on meeting our popcorn bucket hookup next weekend, so hopefully I'll get that alien popcorn bucket.
He shipped mine out, so I'm
Nice.
hoping it'll be here. They wanted $125 to get it here today. I was like, no.
That's a absurd amount.
It was like Tuesday last week, and I was like, it might be here Monday anyway. Our mail hasn't come yet. Well, it might be here now. I don't know. But
well, it's all very exciting. Delving into the whole popcorn bucket world makes me regret not getting that Dune.
I wanted the Dune popcorn bucket, but by the time I went to go see Dune, it was way too late. You have to go and get these things like immediately.
Have you checked on eBay?
So, actually, some of the popcorn buckets I missed, since I have the Deadpool one. They have a baby pool one where he's like sitting on a chair. Like, I don't know, you didn't see Deadpool Wolverine yet, right? So there's baby pool in it, so it's a little tiny baby Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like him in like a chair, and the back of the chair opens up and the popcorn comes out. That was selling for like $80 or $90, I think.
Would you pay that much for something you really wanted?
No. I mean, no. I just paid $226 to a friend of mine who's over in London to get me a 2016 bottle of Yellowstone single proof bourbon that they don't make anymore. And that was $226. So there are certain things I'm willing to buy. $150 for a popcorn bucket definitely ain't it. But I can drink bourbon,
Well, it makes me feel less bad about the money I've spent recently on a bunch of Creature from the Black Lagoon memorabilia from the 60s.
Nice.
That's my new thing. I've decided to collect.
I'm quietly saving up all of my money till I get $65,000 so I can buy the original Xenomorph costume designed by H.R. Geiger from the Alien franchise.
Man,
and yes, I would wear it around the house.
Well, did you see the premiere?
Do a whole podcast in it.
Oh my god! Did you see the premiere? They had that alien.
Yeah, I actually been seeing on Commie Talk some things about like so Regal I think does it's called a 4DX or something, and I think it's like a 270 degree like screen, so it makes it feel like you're in the movie. But they were having people like they had a guy pretend that he had one of them fucking chest bursters come out of his chest.
Oh, I saw that.
And it was like in a movie theater, they were kind of like cosplaying that shit happen and stuff. So I've seen stuff like that, which is cool. I would like to see that, but they don't do that kind of shit around here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's actually really neat. Well, we don't want to talk about Alien Romulus today because I haven't seen it. Is there anything you...
Yeah. Furiosa, but noteworthy because it was a net negative.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. I didn't. Like I said, we've already talked about this extensively. I don't know if I have anything new.
Yeah, no, my brother was visiting all weekend, so got to do some cool shit. I went down to this place called the Laurel Caverns, so you can do a little bit of spelunking. That was fun. And then let's see, I went and had a sloth adventure on Sunday where I got to pet and feed a sloth and it painted a picture. So I'll show that on the next podcast.
Good for you.
Poor Adam.
I watched the Joe Rogan comedy special, Burn the Boats. It wasn't very good.
No, it was pretty mid.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that.
I saw the TV Glow. This is the name of the movie. I saw the TV Glow. And that was a dog shit movie that drive you nuts too.
It's on my list.
I watched Twisters. I thought that was like middling, but I thought it was. I laughed my ass off when those 3 people got killed at the beginning of that movie. Those 3 hipsters.
Yeah.
The last guy, he just gets sucked out horizontally. I'm like, that's real dumb. Like, was he on a zip line? Like, what happened there? A Quiet Place Day 1, okay movie. There's a cat in the movie. That's all I'll say. It's interesting. The cat is interesting when it comes to like, the cat doesn't really make any noise, but it also just kind of hangs out, and it's like always in the background, and you're always like, is this the time where the cat fucks everybody over? And like, because it's just like, is the cat gonna like meow or purr, or is like got a bell or something? Like, what's going on? And the last one I'll mention is the Vordelok, which was a puppet vampire movie.
Oh God.
Well, no, it was based on like the Dracula / Nosferatu storyline. So it's like this French guy going through the countryside, and he stops in at it's not a big house, it's like a cabin kind of house, and it's like owned by a bunch of gypsies who live there, but it follows that same original plot, and then Dracula himself is like a giant puppet thing, and it's just weird because like the puppet like sucks the blood out of your neck, and it's kind of like weird, and it's in French. It was fucking cool. It was shot on 60 millimeter, so it's like it's got a really weird look to it. Very strange.
I'll have to check it out.
I don't know that you'd love it, but I could at least recommend it because I think it might end up on a.
Oh boy.
Yes.
I'm excited, man, to do our list next year. I'm hoping that our number 100 podcast, episode 100, ends up being that one. That would be iconic.
I bet we could make that happen if we could get a little better.
I'm sure.
I'm
sure.
I didn't have time last week. I just didn't have time. I was so
That's okay.
busy.
It happens, man.
I never
not
get
going to
busy.
be able to do it every week. It happens.
Yeah, it does.
That's why
happen.
we're only on episode 80 something. 2?
1, 2.
Pretty much it, man. I'm starting to play hockey again tonight. So got a game at 7:30. We'll see how that goes. Haven't played in a few years.
Rollerblades?
It's deck hockey, so it's running.
You use a ball or a puck?
Ball.
I saw somebody was advertising here locally, and I was like,
I would love for you to go and start playing ball hockey. That'd be hilarious.
It would complete an evolution that I never expected to have. I gotta tell you, I'm like, it's kind of wild. I'm getting back football season.
Yeah, but hockey season's getting ready to
come
on too.
I was itching. I was like, you know what? I miss football. I'm glad it's back. And then I'm like, yeah. And then that hockey comes back too, and I'm itching for that.
October. I'm
watching these guys. They all get their Stanley Cup day, and I'm watching them, and I'm like, that's really cool. Cup though.
Well, I'm wearing my Panthers hat actually.
Not only 45 days ago. Oh, nice. I mean, it hasn't really been that long ago. It was like the end of the ticket.
Yeah, I like this one. It's one of my favorites.
Draft.
I thought it was funny that we were both actually wearing Florida hats.
Unironically and just by chance.
Yep, not on purpose.
Well, I'll not keep you any longer, sir.
All right, buddy. I'll catch you later.
Yeah, I'll catch you later. Our next podcast, we'll probably talk about the DNC, so maybe we could do it at the end of the week or early next week. And I'm not going to watch it like I did with the RNC just because nobody got shot, so it's not as interesting. But I will, and I'm sure it will not disappoint.
Yeah, it will not.
Have a good one, sir.
See you, pal.